hello and welcome to the Stateside Soccer Show. My name is Jordan. With me, as always, is Logan, who has survived the hurricanes.
Yeah, no, not of the Miami variety, but of the Tampa variety. Yeah, Jordan off a crazy week. I had to work 33 hours.
Mm.
Hurricane came up through us right over our hospital where I work, and yeah, no, wasn't a lot of fun. I do not recommend sitting through a hurricane. They are not fun. So, but yeah, glad to be back. I know we missed a week, but you and I both had crazy
Oh yeah,
weeks.
I'll
So
apologize for that. I really was trying to get an episode out last week, and Monday I felt sick. I had like a headache, and I was like, I'll do it Tuesday. And then Tuesday I recorded 15 minutes, and I don't think it was very good. And I was like, my wife had a doctor's appointment, so I was like, oh, it's just me and the baby and the dogs. So I was like, oh, I'll just put him in his swing. I fed him, like all that kind of stuff. I'll put him in a swing. He'll fall asleep. No, he was very active, blabbing. It was very distracting. So then I was like, okay, I'll pause 15 minutes in here. I'll get him settled and then I'll finish recording. And then it hit a certain point where I was like, I came up to keep recording and I was like, this isn't good. Like I just like it would be a mammoth edit because I probably had to cut like every few seconds because I'd keep being like looking back like this and like he'd be blabbing. So I was like, you know what? Thankfully, there was only 2 games this week and we didn't miss much. So I was like, you know what? I have the same show notes as last time, so we'll talk about like the same stuff, and we'll actually get Logan's perspective on it. So it'll be a better episode anyway. So we'll kick it off with Miami has wrapped up the Supporter Shield. Logan, they have 71 points. They're 2 points off breaking the record of 73 that New England set in 2021. LAFC, Red Bulls, and New England have all reached the 70-point mark. And so now Miami is the 4th team to do so. All of those are very recent 2021, 2019, 2018. They're 10 games unbeaten right now with 7 wins and 3 draws. They've tied Montreal in 2022 for the most road wins in a single season in the post shootout era. And they have a shot this week to actually break the playoff record, and they will be not the playoff record. I mean the Supporter Shield record, and they will be going up against New England, who is a disaster, as we saw this weekend against Columbus, and it is their record too. So I think that's a very interesting game to watch. Do you think they can get it done? I think before it looked like it was a more slam dunk. Then they kind of, fell a bit. Then they resurged a bit. Like a very winnable game they have here to break the record.
yeah, and they talked to Tata, and he said that it was something that they definitely wanted to do. They thought it was a good accomplishment, a goal that they had as they started to approach the magical number. And without Carlos Heel, I think the Revs have kind of cashed in for the season. I don't think that this will be much of an issue for Miami, especially at home against a New England team even with their subs, Jordan, I mean, even if they're not going to play Messi as much or Suarez, even, I still feel like they've got a deep enough team which has gotten them this far that can carry the load. I think that this is an easy lockup of the record. I think they're going to break the record. And this has been the best team that we've ever seen, not just on paper, but in performance. And what's amazing is that I think it's a third of the season. They've done this without Lionel Messi. So it's amazing. It's a testament to what Tata and them have built in Miami, not just with Lionel Messi. And this was a concern that you and I had coming into the season. Were they going to have enough players to really just kind of put people in and around them? But then they went crazy. They went on some signing sprees. They've got young DPs that they were able to implement. They've got guys on Tam and Gam. They were able to work the roster rules unlike any of the other teams that we've really been able to see, Jordan. I think
Mm-hmm.
some of the other teams are trying to kind of blueprint their success. But again, like you said, this team I think is destined for that magical number, and I think ultimately get it. And again, we just watched the best team that's ever played in MLS, which is pretty cool.
They have more away wins than home wins. They've been pretty good. I think that means that they have one more home game. They've had the same record. They're consistent. 10-2-4 at home, 11-2-4 away. So if they win this game at home against the Revs, that will be like the perfect split season of home and away. Same result, and would be a record breaking uh, point total. So it's here. Miami has wrapped it up. They won a supporter shield. So since Messi have joined, they have a Leagues Cup. They've an Open Cup runners up, right? And then they were runners up in that, right? Or they got
Yeah.
by in the semis, but they had a run. No, they lost. Yeah, I don't know. They lost to Houston in the final, right? That's what I remember.
Yes.
I'll fact check that. But now they win a supporter shield. And yes, it's not a balanced schedule, but it is something that we celebrate in this league, and it just shows how how they turned this around with just signing. I don't want to say just signing Messi because they signed a boatload of players and really did the team. But just moving on from Phil Neville, bringing in Tata, bringing in Messi, bringing in Suarez. And yes, I understand that they have a market that is more eligible to be more sexy for players to come to, and that like Philly was never going to be able to get like a Luis Suarez or a Lionel Messi. Their loss. Have they seen the Chester Stadium? All right. That area is beautiful. That's where they could be playing and living. Anyway, so we have that. Miami. So there's like extenuating circumstances in that regard, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But when they're in this thing, it could still go wrong, right? Like we've seen players come over and fail, and we've seen super teams try to get constructed and fail, but they didn't. And now I think the end goal here is all right, let's break the point total. Let's make sure we're healthy. Let's go into the playoffs and win the cup. I think if they don't win the cup, it is a failure of a season. So Porter Shield is nice. I'm sure fans will be pleased with that, but there's only one more season, maybe, of a window for this team to win MLS Cup, and it's next season, in my opinion. So why settle for supporter shield when you can have both? We've seen teams win both. Miami's got to be the favorite to win both. I mean, they can beat the Columbus Crew, right? Like that's happened before. So we'll see how it all shakes out. But if you're a Miami fan, I hope you're, reveling in the supporter shield win. It's a huge turnaround from those really bad Miami teams. And now this market is actually getting what I think many people would say that they deserve, is just being a big soccer market.
Yeah, I I don't know if we've ever had a heavier favorite going into an MLS Cup playoff. Um, I mean, I think that's warranted with the best team in the history of MLS,
With the
right?
best player.
With the
Yeah.
best player that's ever played in MLS and possibly the world. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun, and so many people I think were so down on what this could look like, but it's been a wild ride. It's been a lot of fun. I remember when Copa came around, Jordan, you and I were concerned that possibly they could lose some steam. Um, and then once Messi got hurt, I thought for sure that this team would at least regress some, but it's been full steam ahead, and I think
Yeah.
it's been. I think they've constructed a roster that many can look at and say, beyond Lionel Messi, beyond Suarez, maybe Busquets, Alba. I mean, this team really is built extremely well. I think they've kind of filled in the pieces nicely in and around them, and I think that's been the key to what has been missing for so many of these teams that try to put together some of these super teams. If I look at Toronto, they tried to do that with Bernadeschi and Insigne, but never got it off the ground. It's the
Mm-hmm.
attitude of the players as
Yep.
well.
Yep.
They just I don't know, like LAFC and LA Galaxy when back in the day when Beckham and them were there, built good teams around these players. You can't just rely on two players or three players to bring you success. And Inter Miami did not stand complete. Like it would have been so easy for them, Jordan, to go into this season and put those four on the pitch and go, all right, well, we can do this with some of the where's Waldo kind of players of MLS, placing different players in that might not have worked with that system. But they went ahead and up and down this roster, you look consistently at players that compete and are good in this league, like a Campana, like a Diego Gomez, Robert Taylor. I mean, there's just Julian Gressel, one of the best MLS players outside of some of these star players. So,
Well, something that I'm thinking of now when I was reading out those teams that have reached 70 points: New England, LAFC, Red Bulls. In those seasons, they haven't even sniffed the final. 2018 when Red Bulls got 70 plus points, Atlanta United beat Portland in the MLS Cup final. 2019 when LAFC did it, it was the Sounders beating Toronto. 2021 when New England did it, it was NYCFC versus Portland. They would have to be the first team that has 70 plus points that wins MLS Cup for them to be able to pull this off. So just an interesting wrinkle with that. And I think they can. I think those other teams were never at the level of what Miami is able to. I mean, both Suarez and Messi have MVP cases, right? I mean, you have two cases for MVP on a team. That's pretty big deal. Let's get to Josh Wolff. He's out. Let go from Austin. He had a 45 win, 60 loss, 30 draw record across 4 seasons and only made MLS Cup playoffs in 2022. And that's when they reached the Western Conference final. That's it. They've been calling for it. The Austin fans have not been showing up as much because of how underwhelming this team has been. You had Jerussi making weird tweets. It's time, right, for Josh Wolff to be out.
Yeah, I think the hashtag Josh Wolff out thing has been around for years, Jordan.
Since the first season of him, I believe, actually.
Yeah, it was the first year. It hung on through the one outlier of a year, which is wild to me because I think so many people thought, especially heading into this season, that maybe they were going to right the ship. But injuries to defensive players, injuries to key attacking players, an aging roster in different parts where it shouldn't age. And I think it is very difficult to be successful with an aging roster. When I say that above 30 years old, I feel like the wheels can start to come off of players. And they did. And I think that this roster is poorly constructed. I don't know how it goes going forward. I don't know who they're going to kind of pin to reel in this team a little bit. I'd love if Bruce Arena got a shot here. I think it'd be a match made in heaven because I feel like if there's anybody out there right now that I could reel in some of this, it would be a coach like Bruce. I'm not sure Bruce can coach in this league and satisfy some of the players and whatever happened internally with the Revs, which seemed to be a he said kind of thing. But yeah, Jordan, I mean, looking at this roster, it's a mess. Like currently constructed, it is an absolute mess. Nothing on it really is that enticing. Alex Ring, I think, is fading. Obrian, I think, had an okay season, but not great. They brought in Jazzy Zardes, who ends up just scoring 3 goals, plays in 32 matches, and only has 3 goals. So they were hoping somebody would be a talisman. Diego Rubio, I'd love to get back into the mentions from the Austin fans early on this year when they said that Diego Rubio was not an overrated signing and worth all the money. Well, it wasn't that much money, but he ended up not panning out very well. And like you said, I think it starts to implode when your best player is out there saying that he'd rather be somewhere else. So, yeah, overall not good. I think this is a burn it down, torch it kind of thing. I don't think that this roster is salvageable, and I think that you get rid of the pieces that you need to get rid of and start over because I think Austin deserves that. It's going to be tough because they're going to be rebuilding this team, and I'm not sure that they're going to be the biggest attracting club that I think that and plus Precourt, like you always got that dynamic, right? And you know a lot more about that history with him and Columbus, but I just feel like Precourt at the end of the day, he's got the say, and that's who's going to make these decisions.
They have a GM, right? Um, because they had the whole fallout from the Reina saga and all that. So I was kind of surprised that Wolff, I guess, stayed around when a new president of football came in, type of thing. But this is now the time to make the move, like you said, rebuild. It's time to kind of just redo it all and make it in a new image. And I hope the fans show up now that, hey, like they listened to you. They fired Josh Wolff. Hopefully they get in a good manager. Now show them that you're going to support the team again. Um, and I assume opening day, there'll still be a good vibe around this team. But if it unravels from there, we see how quickly Austin is ready to turn the page when I'm talking about the fans. So I'll be curious to see who they get. It would definitely, I would want it to be a more experienced manager than Josh Wolff, just because they need to be able to handle the pressure of dealing with this hardcore fan base that is very, very quick to, be upset. So um, that's tough. And Josh Wolff, that was like his first big gig. He was like a assistant to Gregg and assistant to Ben Olsen, stuff like that. Um, it didn't really
Maybe
work
leave
out.
the Gregg Berhalter Ben Olsen tree alone.
Yeah,
Doesn't seem to work very well. They shake a lot of limbs
unless if
from
you
that
are
tree,
Ben Olsen.
unless you are Ben Olsen.
If
Yeah,
you are the
like
stump of that tree, it
yeah.
works well.
Whoa, hey, that's me. But yeah, with Rodolfo Borrell too from Manchester City, you wondered, Jordan, just how much. I mean, obviously
Well, what did he really
they're
do over there too, right?
right,
Like how much.
right.
Yeah, that's another question. It's a totally different
He worked
setup.
more with academy,
Right,
yes.
and it's a whole
Yeah,
different setup when, like,
yeah.
even if you want to say like he worked at the academy though, but like our rules of getting academy players are so different here, and our rules for the league are so different here. You know, it's interesting when they go out and grab those type of people and say, "Hey, let's go ahead and grab a city." To me, that felt like we're getting somebody associated with a big club, so that way the fans will be happy. But like, how much does that carry over to what he's got to learn? And now he's been in the position, so he has learned, right? But it's like I'm curious to see what type of coaches he's bringing in. Established MLS guys, people from overseas. What does that look like? Pep Guardiola, like what does that look like?
Hey, Pep's available after next year, so
Yeah,
we'll see.
next summer or
He
something,
he'll
right?
be in NYCFC. He'll be in New York somewhere.
Well, Gregg Berhalter was out at U.S. men's national team. He's now going in to Chicago Fire as the director of football and head coach of the Chicago Fire. What do we make of this? A lot of people say it's a really good deal, really good signing. I do worry that he's both. That's traditionally not done very well in Major League Soccer. Um,
Yeah,
we've seen his teams. At Crew, I think he had 4 out of 5 years in the playoffs, but they never really made deep runs in those playoffs. They were
yeah, because it wasn't
never.
until Caleb Porter took over that they won
Yeah,
an MLS Cup. Um, I like what you said. I don't think it does work very. How I mean, just picture this: you were asked to do two different jobs in your current profession. How would that go for you? Like, I just don't
you would
feel
end up
like
splitting a lot of
duties, yeah,
the
and
duties. Yeah.
responsibilities, yeah. I I okay,
So he was
should
in a final, right? The 2015 final that he lost to Caleb Porter at Portland.
mhm,
They lost that one 2-1 in 2015, but that was the deepest they went until Porter took over in 2020,
okay.
around 2020, and won that. So
But here's the thing, right? Chicago, for as long as I've been covering the league, and for a very, very long time now, a decade, I guess, have
Almost.
never. Is it almost a no, not how long we've been covering. It's been a decade since they've had a relevant team, right?
Yes, we've done the math on that, but also they have been pretty much a terrible team
Like
except for
historically
98
bad.
when they won it. Okay, like
Yeah.
they've
They've probably been the worst team. I would say them and the Quakes
uh,
are
you're
the
close. Yep, they're one of those
right. I
two.
would feel like those are comparable. But yeah, like you said, and nothing would make. And I asked Andrew Pater, who's our friend who listens to the show, fan of the podcast. He'll get a kick out of this.
And fan of the
I've kind of
fire.
talked right, and I've talked to him about this, and he's like, nothing's more exciting, right, than Gregg Berhalter taking over your club team after he's just demolished your country
Had
team.
the
So
worst Copa America ever. Like it was one of the first times the
yes,
host nation did not get out of the group. That's how bad it was this summer. Okay.
yeah. And nothing against Greg. He seems like he's turned a corner, and but so much baggage comes with him, right? The expectations of he's going to come in with pretty high expectations because where he came from and people know who he is. He's going to be the sporting director and the head coach. And Jordan, we've seen him call in some people that are his decision making is not good. We've figured that. So I think this is a disaster. I
A
think
disaster. Okay.
yeah, I'm going to go disastrous. I'm going to say this is one of those situations where, and good on Greg Vanny for correcting whatever was happening with the Galaxy because he was borderline getting there too. But I think with Chicago and their resources, they've never been able to put together a good team. And that's not because they don't have money to spend. They do have money to spend. Their
Well, I'll say
owners do have a
that's
lot of
a
money.
newer development. So
Yeah.
the only thing I would say is, look, I don't think this is going to be. I don't think it's going to work a miracle here, but I do think they'll be better than they've been previously. And I think that if ownership puts the money in this is the time now for them to blow it up again. Instead of keep going back to Frank Klopas every other
Yeah.
year, they can now hopefully turn the page on that and set up a good foundation where even if Greg doesn't get them across the line when he leaves, maybe we have like a Caleb Porter-esque coach that steps in and takes them that next level afterwards.
His advantage will be that he could call in some of the US guys that maybe aren't getting time somewhere
I keep
else.
seeing
And
people
that's where
try to
he
say that's where
focuses.
McKinney should go.
No, please don't.
No, I don't think so
No,
either.
no. If and I think with Weston, he moves. I think he can move elsewhere into a different kind of tier, even if he stayed in the Italian
Yeah,
league.
like,
Maybe
or
if he
like
looks at Inter
Dutch
Milan or
or
right,
something,
or
right?
goes Dutch, or goes to. There is nothing wrong with the second with the championship playing over in England. I mean that's a good league to be in. Um, and if he's going to come to MLS, MLS is a good challenge. Like there are guys on our roster that look really good. But honestly, if I'm him, I'm staying in like the Dutch league or something like that. But anyway, I
Yeah.
think, and there was a huge list of names, Jordan, of who the Chicago Fire could go after, and all of them were U.S. men's national team products that he really liked. But again, do I think he can build a good team? Yes, but do I think the resources and the ability to build that team is going to be there? No, I don't. I've never Chicago's that ownership group has never given me any kind of faith that they're going to put the resources in behind what the manager is actually doing. I think they've tried to do different things with Ezra, and then they bring in Klopas as like, oh
Mhm.
crap, we made a mistake. Maybe this was some stability. Now they're going to Greg to build a team that he's never done that before. So I don't really know how that all fits. Like I don't know where that what where does that decision where is that decision made? Is that like a cost thing? Is that like a what? He's a good coach. Maybe he's got really good idea of how to build squads because he didn't build the U.S. men's national team. He's just selecting from a pool of players.
Well, he did have good recruitment. We were able to get some dual nats because of
Yeah,
him.
that's true.
But I the pessimistic view of it for me is that it's literally he's a name. I
Yeah.
froze. Can you hear me still?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep. You just look good. You're
Okay.
frozen, but you sound good too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. He's he's a name and he coached the men's national team and I feel like it's a name casuals will have heard because of that and that's why he was hired. That's literally all I can think of. And he lives in Chicago. So for him it's like great.
Right. It's kind of lazy. Like, it's kind of a lazy hire. It's kind of like, you know
Mm.
what? It didn't pan out there. He's had some success in MLS. I would say good enough, especially from comparison to what Chicago's done over the last couple of years. But by no means do I think this team will ever build anything successful under this ownership group, because they've not done so yet, and they can't figure out stadium rights. They can't figure out where they want to be. They can't fill Soldier Stadium unless Messi shows up or the women's team's playing. Like, I don't understand. Like, I don't get what this is all about. Chicago's
Yeah,
kind of like in that NYCFC range where they just can't figure out what's going on.
they got out of that terrible like bridge view contract or whatever,
Yeah.
and then end up in Soldier Field where, yeah, they just need like a soccer stadium close to the city.
It doesn't make any sense. They got plenty of places up by the lake. It would be beautiful. Like, they've got
Yeah,
so many opportunities up there.
and they actually have better local transit than a lot of other
Yes.
areas that I've been around. So,
Yeah.
um, I don't know. Okay, let's go on. Chucho breaks a Columbus Crew record with his 2-goal night against the Philadelphia Union last week. He has 19 goals, 13 assists, which is 32 goal contributions, which surpasses Stern John in 1998 when he had 31 goal contributions with 26 goals and 5 assists. So that's a new club record for goal contributions in a season. Still one game to go for the Crew. So, or yeah, well, they also just played this past week. So that was, of course, from the week before. Um, and Chucho did not have a goal contribution that I can see this past weekend. So yeah, he's still at that number then. With a game to go, as we are getting ready for decision day, the last games have taken place. Those 2 games on Saturday and Sunday, as we get ready for decision day on October 19th, with the East Coast games at 6 o'clock, the West Coast games at 9 o'clock. So let's take a look at that before we move on to the Pochettino U.S. men's national team stuff.
You want something amazing? A stat that
Yeah.
when you were saying that, it rang a bell. So Cucho Hernandez, right? Or Chucho. Um, he's got 32 goal contributions, which sets the franchise record for Columbus Crew.
Mm-hmm.
A historic pace. He's played 26 matches and he's started 22 games. To put into perspective how good Lionel Messi has been, he's also got 32 goal contributions in just 18 matches played, 15 of those matches where he started. So when people are arguing about MVP and when Lionel Messi wins it, that is why Lionel Messi wins MVP this year, because it's going to happen. Brace yourself.
I could
I
see
don't
the
think,
I can see the other argument though of like
yeah,
they played better. They played very well without him too. That maybe
right.
he's not as important as needed then. But like you're right, when people keep saying for Chucho, and so far they have the same amount of goal contributions in less games for Messi, the argument starts to fall apart a bit.
It's just insane. I wanted to say that before you moved on because I was like, that number rang a bell because I'd read earlier that Messi had also had 32, but I wanted to double check before I said it. So
Yeah, Toronto's eliminated, so that leaves in the East DC United, Montreal, Philadelphia, Atlanta. Those are the teams still in it for those last 2 spots. I think I have some clinching scenarios here that we can look at for decision day as well. 4 teams can clinch a spot. What they mean by that is 4 teams are still in the hunt, but there's only 2 spots available. So DC will clinch a berth if they win or draw versus Charlotte. There you go. They will clinch a spot with option number 1. Option number 2, Montreal lose, Philly lose and draw, DC own the tiebreaker advantage over Montreal. 3, Montreal lose, Atlanta lose and draw, and DC own the tiebreaker advantage over Montreal, which I believe is goals scored. So it could still happen where Montreal, I guess, could have the advantage. Option 4, Philadelphia lose and draw versus Cincy, and Atlanta lose and draw or draw at Orlando. But really, DC, it's there for you. If you want to clinch a berth, win against Charlotte, and you're in. You can even draw. You can even draw. So DC has options. Montreal needs to win/draw versus NYCFC. Or if DC lose and Philly lose or draw, and Montreal own the tiebreaker over DC. Option 3, DC lose, Atlanta lose or draw, and Montreal own the tiebreaker over Atlanta. Or Philly lose or draw, and Atlanta lose or draw. But again, it's there for you, Montreal. Win or draw, and you're in. For the other teams, it's going to take a little bit of help. Okay, Philadelphia, they need to win and have Montreal lose and have DC lose. Or Philly needs to win and Montreal lose and Atlanta lose or draw at Orlando. So Philly fans will be rooting for Orlando. Option 3, Philadelphia win, Montreal lose, and Philadelphia owns a tiebreaker over Atlanta. Option 4, Philadelphia win and DC lose and Atlanta lose or draw. Or option 5, Philly win and DC lose and Philadelphia own a tiebreaker over Atlanta. So for Philly, your only options are to win against a really good Cincinnati team. You have to win and then have other results go your way. Atlanta can clinch if they win at Orlando and Montreal lose and DC loses. Or if they win and Montreal lose and Philly lose or draw. Or if Atlanta win, Montreal lose, and Atlanta owns a tiebreaker over Philly. Or Atlanta win, DC lose, and Philadelphia loses or draws. Or option 5, Atlanta win and DC lose, and Atlanta owns a tiebreaker over Philly. That's for your last 2 spots. I think it's almost safe to say Montreal and DC should get in. They just need a win or lose, win or draw, right? Like that's all they need to get in. If anything else, it'll be interesting if they start losing, how fast that news spreads to like Philly and stuff, and how these teams attack differently. But Philly has a very tough game, and that's why they needed to get those points earlier, because now they're in a spot where they had like 5 straight really tough games. Anything about those before we talk about some seeding scenarios in the West?
I guess if you're looking for some silver lining as a Philadelphia Union fan, Jordan, is that they are playing a Cincinnati team that's got absolutely nothing to play for except momentum. But momentum doesn't exist if you ask some people. But I will say, if you are Cincinnati, you're locked into the 3 spot. You can't go up, you can't go down. You're kind of just there hoping nobody gets hurt. So Philadelphia Union fans, if you're looking for some silver lining, there it is. Because again, like Jordan said, they are still a very tough team to beat. Do I think the Union can beat them? Yes, but it does require, I mean, you don't have like what so many want. You don't have control of your own destiny. And DC United in Atlanta,
And
or
and
not DC United and Montreal control there.
and Atlanta too. So yeah, Atlanta doesn't control it, but
Right.
all 3 of the results that Philly would need to go their way, because what you would want is you would want all 3 of these to go that way in case if one of them starts getting close, right? Like you wouldn't want Montreal losing and DC losing, but Atlanta's winning, because then what happens if DC gets a late equalizer or something, right? So like you would want all 3 of those to be losing. Montreal faces NYCFC. DC faces Charlotte. Charlotte's been good. Orlando has been good facing Atlanta in a rivalry game. If you're Philly, there's a chance, right? There's a chance. If you're Atlanta, there's a chance too, because you're looking at Philly versus Cincinnati. You're looking at Montreal and NYCFC and DC and Charlotte. And you're like, all right, Charlotte's the one I'm really worried about up toss in the air here, because I think DC can beat them. And they've been very wishy-washy, right? But they're above them in the standings. So not that that really matters, but it shows that that is an option for Charlotte to beat DC. The game is in DC. So that's a little bit of an uphill battle. Same thing with Montreal.
Yeah,
Is
they
a
both
game in
host.
Montreal. Philly
Yeah,
hosts as well. The only one that's a
yeah.
road game is Atlanta.
I think if you're looking at these teams, Atlanta's probably got the hardest in,
Especially
just
Orlando's
because
put
they're
like
playing
what
in
3 goals
Orlando, and
against
Orlando
every
has to
person.
win. Yeah, Orlando has to win to stay above NYCFC for the home field. So Orlando's going to come out firing. So I would say theirs is pretty slight. Atlanta, Philadelphia, Jordan. I mean, it could happen. It could happen. Chaos has happened before. If DC and Montreal somehow both lose at home, and somehow Atlanta and Philadelphia both win, they both hold their tiebreakers because they both have, because it comes down to wins. They would all have 10. Then it goes to goal differential. Union
Mm,
and Atlanta own those tiebreakers. So chaos could ensue, Jordan. If I was a betting man, I think I would stay safe and probably say that both DC and Montreal get a result they need
I
to
think so
stay
too.
above the Union. It's just so hard to rely on them
And
losing
you,
at home.
and you have Benteke who is scoring goals for fun. So
Yeah.
for them, that's got to be pretty good. Over in the West, LA can clinch a number 1 seed with a win or draw against Houston, or if LAFC loses or draws against San Jose, or if LA just has a tiebreaker over LAFC. LAFC can clinch the 1 seed if they win and LA lose and they have a tiebreaker. Home field advantage. Orlando can clinch a home field advantage with a win versus Atlanta. So there you go. Or if NYCFC lose against Montreal, or if you draw versus Atlanta and you have a tiebreaker over NYCFC, you can get home field advantage. NYCFC can get home field advantage, but they need to win at Montreal and have Orlando lose, or win at Montreal and have Orlando draw, and NYCFC would have to have a tiebreaker. So those are our clinching scenarios as we go into decision day. This is probably, Logan, the first decision day since we've started covering the league here where there's not as much up for grabs.
Yeah, it's seeding really,
Yeah.
jockeying. The East obviously, but that's again, those probabilities are so low for those two teams, for Philly and Atlanta. If you look at the West, Jordan, you're right, 1 through 9, that's already locked in. But every
Yep.
single team has something to play for. Like they all have something to play for as far as seeding is concerned. It just depends on what. And some teams they might not say it, but like sometimes there's a better matchup sitting there. Obviously, teams are going to go out and lose, but again, they know they're comfortably in it. It's not the end of the world if they lose. So once they go down a goal or two, it could be where it's like, okay, we're in the playoffs. Don't anybody get hurt. That situation can happen. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying that they're going to say, hey, that matchup's better for us. Let's lose on purpose. No team will ever do that. They will never do that. They will, especially they'll never admit that because that's wild. But I mean, every single game, Jordan, like LAFC could still grab the 1 seed. Seattle and RSL are level on points for 3 and
Yep.
4. They'll want to battle for, in case somebody dethrones the first seed and they want home field advantage, like they'll battle for that one.
Yep.
Houston and Colorado, they could flop. Colorado and Minnesota could flop. Minnesota does not want to lose because if Vancouver wins, then Minnesota goes down to the wild card
Yep.
game. So, yeah, like the West is still chaotic. It's just more about finding your footing and where you end up. Because the Western Conference, Jordan, you and I could get on this show next week, and the Western Conference playoff matchups look all sorts of different.
And Toronto's season has already started. Off season has already started. They've played their 34
Yeah,
games
they're
due to
done.
the unbalanced schedule. They're done. They're eliminated. They're out.
They're in the tropics, baby. They're on the beach somewhere.
Yes. Okay. Let's see. Golden Boot Benteke is 23 goals with 29 matches. He's gonna win it unless if Bowanga and Chucho can score 4 goals and he doesn't score any. Okay. I mean, it's pretty set. MVP race. people still think Messi doesn't really have a shot because he's played less than half of Miami's games. Okay. Some people still think he'll get it because of that. The other names people are thinking are Chucho, Lucho Acosta, Evander, Benteke, and Luis Suarez.
If it's not Lionel, who would you pick?
I think I would have to probably still go with Suarez because he helped keep them afloat while Messi was out, and he was scoring goals and buckets of fun. And I, if we want to say Messi missed too much time, and Suarez didn't, and he scored a lot of goals and he kept them humming. When Messi was out, when a lot of people thought he wasn't even going to be able to run. Remember that narrative
Right.
where they're like, he's going to have to
Yeah.
take
Runs
cortisone
pretty
shot
well.
to run. His knees are okay, and he was running.
Yeah, that's who I would pick.
I don't know if I can give it to. Definitely not Evander. I'm sorry.
No.
Portland's just not high enough in that table for me to even consider that.
Benteke is a good shot, but just with the
But he
performance
gets
of
golden
Messi.
boot. Like I feel like we
Right.
can't like.
Double up?
Yeah, I feel like we
Unless
can't
they're like
double
a
up.
freak of a year. Yeah,
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 yeah.
I agree with you. I agree
It's
with
not
you.
like Benteke is like Shohei Ohtani or something, right? Like he's
Right.
scoring goals, right? Like that's what he
Yeah.
does. That's what he does.
If Benteke starts to play goalkeeper while doing that, then yeah, I'd
Yeah,
gladly give him.
yeah. Wow.
Yeah, or right back.
Yeah,
Starts scoring 20
he
some
just.
odd goals as a right back.
I like it better as a goalkeeper. Just imagining like every time they have a free kick, he
Coming out
comes
of the
running
goal.
up there, gets his head on it, scores a goal, and he's running back.
Oh
Um,
man. But
and
yeah,
what
I
I
agree with you. Suarez is
it would be Suarez. Acosta, I don't think I could give it to him either.
no, already had one and not as good as he was last year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's gonna be Messi though. I almost guarantee it. I don't care how much
You mean
games he
like the
missed.
Messi situation or Lionel Messi?
Both. It's going to be a messy situation because people will
Okay.
be upset that it was Messi that wins
He's
MVP.
gonna get it. You guys can pack up your stuff. He's gonna get it. It's the Lionel Messi effect. The league's gonna get because there's no guarantee he finishes out another year.
Well,
Like there's never a guarantee of that.
you can spin it too, where you're like he missed too much time. It's like, and he still scored that many
Yet he
goals. I mean,
still is the best goal contribution in the whole league.
right, right.
Like, come on. And then people are like, well, when you do that in bunches, that shouldn't count because he just does it against one weak opponent. I'm like, that's a dumb argument because then you have to go through everybody's games and go, ooh, that was a weak opponent. Take that goal off.
Yeah, you would
Like,
have to
you
look
know what
at
I mean?
like it would almost be like goals per game or something.
Right.
You'd have to
Or
look
like a
at that
goal
point.
efficiency, which
Goals
they
per
don't really.
90,
All right.
what he
Which he still
averages per
probably would
point.
own
Yeah, he
that.
probably still, especially with how many games he's played. He's what?
He was at a historic clip.
He's
He's at a historic
contributed
clip. 32 goals or
almost
32.
out of how many games? 16?
18.
18. So he's almost scoring. He's almost contributing 2 goals a game.
Yes.
That's pretty high amount.
That's pretty high. That's like historic.
Let's take a look at decision day. We have Chicago and Nashville at 6:00, DC and Charlotte, Miami, New England, Montreal, NYCFC, Red Bull, Columbus, Orlando, Atlanta, Philadelphia, Cincinnati. Those are your 6:00 Eastern Conference games. Over in the West at 9:00, we'll have Austin, Colorado, Dallas, SKC, Houston, LA Galaxy, LAFC and San Jose, Minnesota, St. Louis, RSL Vancouver, and Seattle and Portland, wrapping it all up with a Cascadia Cup matchup on the final day of the season. Perfect.
Yeah.
And then we have, I think the wild card starts on the Tuesday or Wednesday after that.
Yes, because then the first round, I believe, starts the 23rd. 23rd? No. 27th, 25th, 26th. When does the first round start? I just
It
had it
says
in my head.
playoffs start on the 23rd. So Wednesday are the wild card
Mhm.
matches. And then the weekend should start, I guess, the
first
best
round.
of 3 or something.
Right. Yeah.
If it started today, we would have Vancouver and Portland in the wild card for the right to face the Galaxy. We'd have LAFC versus Minnesota, Colorado versus Seattle, and RSL Houston. Over in the East, we'd have DC and Montreal in the wild card. I remember the last time it was Toronto, Philly, right? So now we'd have DC, Montreal in the wild card to face Miami, Crew and Red Bull, the 2-7, Cincy, Charlotte, the 3-6, Orlando, NYCFC, the 4-5. That's if it started today. Okay, I'm not gonna have pick a game because we'll probably just be watching all these games at the same time. I'm sure people will be watching the MLS 360 at least on one screen to keep an eye on all these results. Though really, you only have to keep if you're wanting to watch two games, the main important games are watch the DC game, watch the Montreal game, have those on two screens if you can. And those are the only ones that truly matter when it's talking about getting into the playoffs. Everything else is pretty set.
Yeah. And if one of them starts losing, then keep an eye on Atlanta or Philly.
Exactly. All right. One thing I want to point out here, Pochettino had his first win. He had his first roster. And he also said something, Logan, that I think if he was an American, people would have been very upset about. I don't know if you saw this. But in the run-up to that friendly, he said some players that are playing overseas are not getting enough game time, and MLS players might get the call in that case. What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's geez, Greg, we got rid of you for a reason. No, I'm kidding. Yeah, like I mean, to be honest with you, I've got more confidence in his ability to evaluate players, much like, and Jordan, we can talk about it, his use of Yunus Musa, who kind of goes against what he had said, but not getting enough runtime over in Europe. But he liked the way that Yunus came into camp. He liked the way that Yunus played during inter squad. And then Jordan, they put him in a new spot on the field that he doesn't ever really play and had one of his better games that he's had in a really long time. So they take him out of the midfield. They put him on the right-hand side. I love that. Like, I love that we're creative enough and we are critical enough and analytical enough to look at something and go, you know what, that situation is not working. Let's try something here because one, it is friendly. Two, I'm still trying to learn this team. But three, Pochettino knew that would work. His skill set is built for kind of that Timothy Weah kind of on the right wing, running down the side. Yunus Musa is built for that. He's a great distributor. He usually does play central, but I think with his skill set, it worked. And that goes to what you're saying that maybe yes, MLS guys do get a chance if the European guys aren't getting a lot of run time. We've seen what that can do to guys like Matt Turner and them, Gio Reyna. But I think you
I
also
think he
see the
was
flip
referring
effect too.
mainly to Turner. I think it was like in a question about Turner that he answered that. And it's like, yeah, I mean, especially goalkeepers, like you want them sharp.
Yes.
Right? You want them playing. I just thought it was funny how people did not make a big deal about it, really, the way that they would have if Gregg had said that. But
right, yeah, no, they would have said, "Greg, how dare you? These are your European class. You need to play them." But yeah, no, I thought everything that he said so far, I've really liked. Like he's been very honest, very transparent about things that have been asked of him. That Greg would have had a whole different situation. Greg always tried to deflect, it seemed, whereas Maurizio is always going to answer that pretty honestly.
They got the win. That's all you need to know. They'll be playing against Mexico later this week. There you go. Not much to read into from the first game, really, just because it's people getting used to him and him getting used to them. So I'm not really eager to read into any of what happened the other day.
I will say Pulisic had an interesting conversation. It basically went, you know, what is this like Maurizio stepping in? You've obviously worked with Maurizio but in the past. And he said, you know, it's interesting because he said that he comes in with this different kind of attitude. And Maurizio said the same thing. He goes, the players it didn't even feel like I was new to the situation. Like the players just kind of, but I think because so many people have worked with people that he knows or have worked directly with him, like they're so kind of interconnected in that European coaching carousel
Yeah.
that I really do feel like the things that he is saying are things that
They
Pulisic
hear at
has
the
heard,
club. Yeah.
Weston's heard, yeah, like guys that have played in the French leagues have heard. Um, I feel like there's a lot of that continuity with different people that Maurizio has been around, right? Like with Pep, with maybe Jose, with like you just name the list of coaches that he's had, with his connections to Tottenham. Um, I just feel like and Christian said that he said, I feel comfortable with him that you're going to get this honest answer where you're going to get, what you need to work on. And I think we saw for the first time, Jordan, it looked like the U.S. men's national team had a game plan. It's basically going to be we're going to press, 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 which Maurizio has always done. And once they turn it over, go quick. And I think that's beneficial to our team because I hated the idea that we are a possession team because we are not a possession team. We are not ticky tack kind of. We are a go at them, go hard, we are young. We've got great legs. We've got good depth. Just go and take the ball from them and run. And I feel like that's what this team could excel at. My cat agrees. She said, "To hell with whatever that was." She just
She's
threw off the.
it was a
She's
cord
also.
or something. I don't know. She's playing with something back there. It's really funny.
she's trying to get into that mindset of
Yeah.
press, 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 and once she gets that item, she's gone, like Maurizio. But yeah, I like what Christian said. He said that it didn't feel different, but it feels different.
I want to wrap up here with some Nisa stuff because I don't know how long this league will be around. I've talked about it a bit on the closed pyramid when we were doing that a bit. They Maryland Bobcats was the best team in the Nisa this season. And I don't know if you saw this, Logan, but they ended up suspending the Bobcats and actually went with a 3-team playoff for their champion instead. Okay.
Mm-mm.
And the Bobcats responded with this statement. We note that NISA have confirmed that our club will not be allowed to participate in the playoffs due to ineligibility. This news comes as a great disappointment to us as we are deeply empathetic to our players who have worked extremely hard all season to earn the chance to compete in postseason play. We find it curious that our club was deemed eligible throughout the regular season, but all of a sudden we are ineligible for postseason competition. Our club has upheld all of our on the field obligations to the league, to our players, our staff, our vendors, and sponsors and partners. That being said, we feel like there is information being spread about our club that is just not true. We are committed to protect our brand and our sporting integrity. Only NISA can clearly communicate the explanation of ineligibility and lack of compliance with the league that they are referring to in their statement today regarding the playoffs. We would love to challenge league officials for the sake of consistency that all standards and expectations that are required of one team is required for all participating teams. To continue to see our commitment to help grow the sport in this country, we firmly advocate for the broader football community and sporters to have access to the truth and transparency on matters like this. So we will make sure to have a follow up on this statement with more information in the coming days. We haven't gotten a follow up statement. That was on October 10th. October 2nd. Okay, no, there was another statement on October 4th. Let me see. Oh yeah, they said they were focusing on their youth night after they were not able to play in the playoffs. So their season has ended. NISA said that they weren't compliant with U.S. Soccer on something. U.S. Soccer has been quiet on all of this, so we're not really sure what exactly happened. But I do know that Bobcats are one of the teams that actually pays their staff and their players, and some of these NISA teams had gotten in trouble for missing payments
Okay.
on players. So it does feel egregious that they were disqualified. NISA is an actual mess. I've said it before, like I think earlier this season or last season, they didn't even have the schedule out until very close to when it kicked off. They only had 10 teams to begin with. I can't see this league staying, and I wouldn't be shocked if the Bobcats try to force a move to USL at some point because of this. I think they're fed up. I think they're done.
I do find it weird. Like I find that why how now did just like it's almost like they resubmit the roster for the postseason and they went something's weird. which they'd been fine with all year. It seems very odd to me, like that there would be something so glaring that they didn't catch before. Like the whole season, they went the whole season,
There's some
and here
conspiracies out there. If you look at who's in the playoffs and who owns the majority stake in Nisa, that's all I'll
that's
say.
so scummy.
That's all I'll say. But
That sounds about right.
yeah,
Well, Jordan, if you and I want to create a league, Bobcats, you're more than welcome into our new
yeah,
league that Jordan and I are
stateside
going to
league.
start.
We're gonna call it
Yeah,
the Stateside Soccer League,
yeah, the
SSL.
SSS, the SSL. There we go. I like that.
There you go.
The SSL. All right, let's get to work on that. Let's call up the lawyers. Let's get them. Let's get them going, firing up.
Let's do
And
it.
we'll be in contact with you guys. Yeah.
All right. Anything else before we wrap up? As decision day is right around the corner.
No, Jordan, I can't believe we've made it through yet another season. My goodness, it feels like just yesterday we were previewing these teams, and now we
Yeah.
are just one game away from the playoffs once again. And we will start our off-season plunge. I know we've got a couple topics that we'll cover, but yeah, keep locked in. This is the best time of year right now for postseason. Love it. So I can't wait to see what happens in these games. Just got to get by these stupid best of 3 series because I don't like those.
Yeah.
That's
They take up a lot
still
of
one of
time
the
too.
I do not like them. But hey, no postseason format seems to be perfect. But
We've done 255 episodes. This is number 256. By the time we get to the playoffs, we have done 257. And
we'll
we'll
hit
be
300
getting,
next year.
yeah, we will at some point. Thank you all for watching and listening along. You can follow us at Stateside Show on all of our social media. You can email us statesideShow@gmail.com. Catch you next time.